The old, abandoned house at the end of Hollow Street had always been a source of intrigue and dread for the townsfolk of Willowville. Its dark, weather-worn exterior stood like a grim sentinel, a stark contrast to the cheerful homes that lined the rest of the street. Over the years, it had gained a sinister reputation, as whispers of mysterious happenings and unexplained disappearances swirled around it. But nobody dared to enter, and the house had remained untouched, a foreboding relic of a past best forgotten. One chilly autumn evening, as the sun cast long, eerie shadows across Willowville, a group of friends gathered for a late-night bonfire in the backyard of a nearby home. Among them was Sarah, an adventurous and fearless young woman who had always been drawn to the enigma of the abandoned house. Her closest friends, Alex, Emma, and Mike, joined her around the crackling fire. Sarah had heard unsettling stories about the house from her grandmother, tales of inexplicable noises, ghostly apparitions, and a buried secret. It was said that years ago, a family had lived there, but they had vanished without a trace, leaving behind a house that was rumored to be cursed. As they shared spooky stories and roasted marshmallows over the flames, Sarah couldn't resist bringing up the idea of exploring the old house. "I've always been curious about what's really going on in there," she said, her eyes glinting with a mix of excitement and trepidation. "Tonight, we should check it out." The suggestion hung in the air, the crackling of the fire the only sound for a moment. Mike, the joker of the group, tried to break the tension. "Come on, Sarah, this is just an old house with a scary reputation. I bet there's nothing more than cobwebs and creaky floorboards in there." But even as he spoke, his voice wavered slightly, betraying his own unease. The legends surrounding the house had a way of weaving themselves into the very fabric of Willowville, and the mere mention of it sent shivers down their spines. Emma, who had always been the most superstitious of the group, couldn't hide her discomfort. "I've heard stories about people who've gone in there and never come out," she whispered, her eyes darting nervously toward the looming silhouette of the house. Alex, the rational thinker of the group, attempted to quell their fears. "Look, if we go in, we'll probably find nothing but dust and memories. But for the sake of curiosity, let's explore a little and prove to ourselves that there's no buried secret in there." With a shared sense of adventure and a hint of dread, they agreed to investigate the old house. Armed with flashlights and a mix of excitement and fear, they approached the creaky front door. The moon watched over them with a pale, unblinking eye. The house was just as eerie on the inside as it was on the outside. The air inside was heavy with the weight of decades of silence, and the dim light from their flashlights cast long, looming shadows. The wallpaper was peeling, the furniture covered in dusty sheets, and the atmosphere was thick with an unexplainable unease. Sarah led the way, her heart pounding in her chest as she opened the door to the basement. The wooden steps led them down into a darkness that seemed to swallow the light of their flashlights. The air was musty, and the silence was suffocating as they descended into the unknown. The basement was a labyrinth of cobweb-covered shelves and old, forgotten belongings. As they cautiously explored, they stumbled upon an old, dusty photo album. The photographs within showed a seemingly happy family, a father, a mother, and a young girl with curly hair, presumably their daughter. The final photograph was a family portrait, the date scrawled in the corner, 1873. Their discovery added to the mystery. What had happened to this family, and why had they left behind a house filled with untouched memories? As they ventured further into the basement, their flashlights revealed a curious detail, a section of the stone floor that seemed slightly out of place. They carefully pried away the stones, revealing a hidden chamber beneath. The air grew colder, and a collective gasp escaped their lips as they uncovered an ancient wooden coffin. It was intricately carved, its surface marked with symbols and strange etchings. The atmosphere in the basement grew increasingly oppressive as they hesitated to open the coffin. It was a moment that held a weight of anticipation and fear. The legends of the house, it seemed, were not merely tales, and the buried secret was real. With trembling hands, they pried the lid free, revealing a sight that would haunt their nightmares for the rest of their lives. Inside the coffin lay the decaying remains of a human body, its desiccated skin stretched over the bones, and empty eye sockets seemed to gaze up at them with an accusing, malevolent glare. The stench of death and decay filled the air, and a chorus of gasps and terrified whispers filled the basement. The friends stood in stunned silence, unable to comprehend the horrifying truth before them. The house held a dark secret, one that had been concealed for generations. Mike, unable to contain his horror, stumbled backward, his flashlight falling from his trembling hands. This can't be real," he stammered. The group was paralyzed with fear, the sight of the corpse and the oppressive atmosphere in the basement proving too much to bear. It was a revelation that surpassed anything they could have imagined, a chilling reality that defied all logic. But curiosity and fear are powerful motivators, and the group made the fateful decision to investigate further. With the corpse's hollow eyes seemingly watching them, they decided to notify the authorities, their shaken voices recounting the horrifying discovery in the basement of the old house. Willowville was thrust into the spotlight of a disturbing investigation as news of the buried body spread like wildfire. The town's history began to unravel as the authorities delved into the mystery, revealing a gruesome tale of a family that had lived in the house over a century ago. The family's name was the Hargroves, and they had once been respected members of the community. Mr. and Mrs. Hargrove had been well known for their charitable work, while their daughter, Elizabeth, had been a bright and talented young girl. But their seemingly idyllic life had taken a dark turn when the family fell under the influence of a mysterious visitor who had arrived in Willowville, a man known only as Mr. Blackwood. Mr. Blackwood, with his charming demeanor and enigmatic presence, had quickly become a prominent figure in the town. He had taken a keen interest in the Hargrove family, particularly in young Elizabeth, who had a talent for playing the violin. Over time, Mr. Blackwood's influence on the family grew, and they became increasingly reclusive, rarely seen in town. Their once joyous home had become a place of shadows and secrets, as the townsfolk began to suspect that Mr. Blackwood was not what he seemed. It was a fateful night in 1875 when the townsfolk were roused by a series of blood-curdling screams emanating from the Hargrove house. The chilling cries echoed through the town, and a group of concerned neighbors had rushed to the scene, but by the time they arrived, it was too late. The Hargrove house was engulfed in flames, its windows glowing with an eerie, malevolent light. The townsfolk desperately attempted to quell the fire, but it raged with an unnatural intensity, as if fueled by an otherworldly force. The house was reduced to ashes, and the Hargrove family was nowhere to be found. In the wake of the devastating fire, the town was left with a sense of dread and the knowledge that something sinister had taken place within the Hargrove household. The disappearance of the family and the unexplainable nature of the fire had only deepened the sense of unease that had surrounded the house for years. As the investigation into the buried body beneath the house continued, the authorities discovered a hidden room within the basement, a room filled with strange symbols and a makeshift shrine dedicated to Mr. Blackwood. It was clear that the family had fallen under his influence, and the hidden chamber had been a place of dark rituals and unspeakable horrors. The townsfolk, their memories of that fateful night in 1875 stirred by the discovery, began to piece together the sinister truth. Mr. Blackwood had ensnared the Hargrove family in a web of darkness, using their talents and vulnerabilities to further his own malevolent agenda. It was believed that he had conducted rituals that defied the natural order, seeking to attain immortality through the sacrifices of the Hargrove family. The burial of the young Elizabeth Hargrove, who had been the most gifted and innocent member of the family, was the final act in this horrifying drama. Her body had been interred in a hidden chamber beneath the basement, a place of eternal rest and torment. As the truth was unveiled, the town of Willowville grappled with the horrors of its past and the malevolence that had been allowed to fester for over a century. The Hargrove House, once a place of dread and whispers, was reduced to rubble, a symbol of the darkness that could take root when good people were seduced by malevolent forces. The group of friends, Sarah, Alex, Emma, and Mike, had played a pivotal role in uncovering the buried secret and confronting the horrors of the past. Their lives were forever changed by the terrifying reality they had stumbled upon, but they had also discovered the strength to confront the darkest of mysteries and bring justice to the Hargrove family. As the years passed, Willowville transformed from a town shrouded in fear to a community that understood the importance of confronting its history. The buried body was no longer a haunting secret but a tragic reminder of the consequences of allowing darkness to take hold. And so, the sinister tale of the Hargrove family, hidden beneath the old house, was finally brought to light, and the town began to write a new chapter in its history, one that celebrated the courage and determination of those who had uncovered the truth and banished the malevolent presence that had plagued their lives for far too long.